Well, hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the Creative Shop Talk podcast. I'm your host, Wendy Batten, and I am super happy that you're here and listening today. I just wanted to give a shout out to all our new listeners. We have had an incredible new download following. I've had a lot of people reaching out to me on Instagram, new listeners, leaving us Apple reviews, and we're so grateful. Well, I'm grateful, my team's grateful, but fellow retailers are grateful. I have had people sharing the podcast, and I just can't tell you how warm and fuzzy that makes me feel. So welcome if you're new. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming back week after week. My intention is always to be of value and to help you with your beautiful, independent retail store, wherever in the world you are. So I know we have listeners from all over the world. And I love hearing from you. So if you haven't reach out in the DMs into my Instagram, on my Instagram DMs. You can leave a review. That's always my most favorite way because it helps us be found, algorithms, all the things. But I also love hearing you from if you're on my email list. So I want to invite you to make sure that you join our weekly email list so you don't miss an episode. We'll have the link in the show notes for you, but we're not spammy. I don't spam you. We send out a weekly podcast email and the occasional Sunday email over coffee. I call it my coffee and conversations on Sundays. So I'd love for you to join our email. So thank you for considering to do that. But either way, I'm so happy that you're here listening right now, wherever you are, whatever space you're in. Today, I'm sharing a little bit about my recent trip to New Zealand, which was incredible, by the way. I have done recaps of my travels before here on the podcast, and I always get lots of questions. I've had people ask me already because I'm recording this. I've only been home for a couple of weeks, but we have a few episodes that were in the can, as they say. So I've had some people ask me if I'm going to do another recap and what I saw when I was out visiting retailers. We were in hundreds of retail stores. I want to say at one point I feel like we were over 100 and like 125, 150. It was just everywhere as we went. We went into tons of small towns, and I was intentionally and purposely visiting as many retailers as I could. So shout out to you if we chatted while I was in New Zealand and maybe left you my card, or we chatted and you asked and now you're listening to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here. And today on the podcast, I'm just going to share a few takeaways from my experience as a traveler, which I've done on a lot of my road trips, my retailer road trips, as I like to call them, and some of the takeaways that I hope will be helpful for you. So you can look at your shop maybe through the different lens of somebody traveling through your town. I am not shouting out anybody in particular for sure. So if you're listening, don't get all like goosebumpy and think, oh, she's going to say something bad. I will say it's really hard sometimes while I'm traveling to not give unsolicited advice. And if I've ever done that to you, I'm so sorry. I just really, really genuinely want the best for you. So I try really hard. I'm quite an embarrassment to my husband sometimes when we're traveling. And this trip in particular was with my daughter and her boyfriend as well. So I tried to behave myself and not be too, helpful. They tell me I'm over helpful sometimes, but I must say I am guilty of a little bit of remerchandising to help a retailer out if a store is really busy. I know, shameful. Anyhow, let's get on with today's show. I'm going to share with you 5 areas that I noticed, and some of these I may have shared in previous podcasts of other previous travel retailer road trip. I don't know what I'm calling these episodes, but they're my trip takeaways and ways that I think that we can all look at our businesses through the lens of new people and why it's really important. So let's go. Running a retail business doesn't have to be so hard. Welcome to the Creative Shop Talk podcast, the go-to podcast for creative shop owners, studio owners, and independent retailers. I'm your host, Wendy Batten, retail business coach and mentor. Each week, I'll share simple, proven business strategies, inspiring stories from fellow retailers, and advice from industry experts. Together, we're going to work to find the success you want from your retail business with more profits in your till and a little more joy in your life. Okay, one of the things, so I was in New Zealand visiting my daughter. We did a lot of traveling. I visited my daughter. We landed in Auckland, New Zealand. I'm in Canada, if you're listening for the first time, and I flew over with my husband to visit my daughter who lives in Wellington, New Zealand. We traveled from Auckland, which is in the North Island. We traveled all the way down. We did a road trip over several days and several towns down into Wellington. Then we we stayed there for a while. Then we drove around Wellington and we visited clients on our way down. I visited Katie in Napier. I visited Millie in Greytown and Adam in Greytown. We had them featured on the podcast last week. And that would be episode 254 if you're listening to this in another time frame. So I get to visit clients. I get to do a lot of things. We flew down to Queenstown, which is in the South Island. We drove through we went through tons of towns in New Zealand, in South Island as well too. So Wanaka and Tianu and just all kinds of areas, just so many. So wanted to give you an example of the fact that we did a lot of traveling. Oh, and then we made our way back up to Auckland through different towns. We just did lots of road trips. I was gone for 6 weeks, and almost the entire time, I would say every single day, with maybe a couple of exceptions, I was in small independent businesses. If not retail, then like coffee shops and restaurants. So my takeaway and my big desire for you is to know that you need to be making sure that you are visible, that you're being found. This is one of my, I can continue to have conversations around this with my clients. I continue to have conversations with strangers. And now I'm going to have continued conversations with you as I'm sure if you're not new around here, if you've been around for a while. We need to make sure we are being found on Google Maps, on Apple Maps. People are not going to just magically find you. And when they see you in the way that retail is in this day and age worldwide, people are going to check you out first before they go in. So yes, we're walking by and I'm walking down the street, but there's a lot of checking out, especially different generations. The younger generation that I was hanging out with, my daughter and her boyfriend, they're checking everybody out before they go anywheres. They're looking it up. They're looking for you. They're looking for places to shop. I was doing both. I was looking up local retailers. I was also I had some specific things I was looking for while I was traveling, but also the front of your shop. So being visible and clear and, having first impressions count. And this is something that's really, really important. It's really important that you are increasing your visibility. So I just want to remind you of that. That is my number one first reminder. So I want to remind you to consider your forward facing, like whatever customer facing marketing you have control of, which we in my world, in my Retailers Inner Circle program, in my mastermind groups and in my coaching frameworks, we call the forward facing asset audit. It's very simple. It's a matter of looking at everything you own and checking it often, and not just doing it once and set it and forget it. So you can go back. We have lots of podcasts on that. If you are an Inner Circle member, listen up. And I know a lot of you are listening. If you're an Inner Circle member, you have access to a simple checklist. There's a checklist inside our monthly playbook. You can pull it up and you don't even have to print it. You can just look at it and leave it on your screen and take 15 minutes and do a forward-facing asset check, making sure things are fresh and new. And it's kind of a checklist, or you can print it up. And we have a standalone one as well, too, if you want to just print the document up. It's super simple. It's super important. If nothing else, you want to make sure that you are on Google Maps. And I'm continue to be shocked at how many retailers are not. It's free and it's important. It's just, I'm going to leave it at that. So just remembering to do your audit, to do a forward facing, it's basically everything that's customer facing that you have control over. How do people see you? How do people see your brand? I am so shocked at the disconnect sometimes in these beautiful shops. I go into your shops and they're beautiful, and you're not really putting your, like, that's not what I saw online. And if I had just checked online, I wouldn't have come in. So I want you to think about that, which actually brings me to number 2 in my list, which is your shop standards. And again, I kind of feel like I laugh because I do talk about this a lot as well too. Shop standards mean the way that you are appearing, the environment, the way I feel, the way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it smells, the way your shop is. Again, kind of coming back to first impressions. There were shops that had like really dirty windows and gross looking front of house, like the front door and the entryway. And you're just not going to go in there, right? I'm just not going to go in there. But then you walk in, if you do go in, and you're like, what the flip is happening here? This is amazing. Why is this not on the outside? Or, really loud music that doesn't align with the brand, or really cluttered and messy and like just chaotic. Stores that feel chaotic, customers see that, they feel that. Is that the way you want your customers to feel? Chaotic in your shop? I don't think so. Well, for the most part, if that's not your brand, it feels, a lot of retailers, when I go into shops, and it feels very uncared for, unloved. And why, if you don't care as a retailer about your business, why would I care about it as a customer? If you don't care that it's messy, or that, I don't know, the service is there, or the music's not on, or whatever, and it feels kind of meh, blah, why would I care about it as a customer? So it's really important that you refresh and you pay attention to what your shop standards are. How do we want our shop to look? How do we want it to feel? How do we want it to, to be? And how do we want our customers, as part of our customers' experience and customer journey, which is what all of this is about. It's about the customer journey. How do we want it to feel and look? So that shop standards, again, it's an entire masterclass inside our Retailers Inner Circle. It's a short masterclass. It's a portion of our customer experience masterclass. So you can go in, watch that for, I think it's a 15-minute one. You can show it to your team. If you're a member of the Inner Circle, go get that. Make that a priority this quarter. Make that something that you pay attention to. It's really important. Okay, number 3, signage, which also kind of goes to the shop standards, which kind of goes to the forward impressions. Be very clear on the exterior of your shop, who you are, what you do, and what's in the store. Susie's shop means nothing to me. Susie's shop with the best wool in town, or the best New Zealand wool in town, or, is much clearer. So let's make sure your taglines are not just like, I don't know, fluffy. There's a lot of signage that I find that's fluffy. Signage is there to support. It's your silent salesperson. I did an entire episode on that. Episode 103 is all about how to use signage. But a reminder for first impressions, it's supposed to also evoke a feeling. So being very clear, so it can help me as your client. But also, signage shouldn't just be factual. Here's 2 examples of signage that I took pictures of, because I had to tell you about it. And I have to show my clients. Sign number 1, in a shop that was very unwelcoming. It was a vintage shop. It was just, I don't know, just felt, there's some shops that just don't feel good. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to spend my money if I don't feel good in your shop. It was cluttered and all the things. Again, shop standards were not great, but there were signs all over this shop that said, if you can't afford it, don't touch it. I mean, what? No, we don't talk to clients that way. I was like, I'd read that and my blood started like boiling. I was just annoyed by that. Is that the way you want to make me feel? In this same shop, and actually a couple of other shops, we saw signage that said, and I know that there's the adage of, you break it, you buy it, but you can make that fun and cheeky and, interesting. You don't have to be rude about it. That sign was super rude, and there were several of them in that shop. But we also saw, we saw a lot of, you're being watched and theft, and, and we have that and we have to, but they were all really rude. So there's cheekier, fun, nicer ways to make me feel good in the shop. Maybe like get some kind of emotion from me that's not anger, because that one did evoke an emotion, but just not a very good one. Certainly did not. And again, certainly did not evoke a good emotion. And again, in this day and age, right now, where we are in the world with retail, we want customers to feel good in our shop. We want to be that place they feel awesome in. So whether it's a new customer like I was in all of these shops or a regular client, we want like our signage, we want our shop standards, we want our marketing, we want everything to feel good. And this isn't piling on the work for you. This is about you paying attention to your brand. So my second experience with signage very quickly is with my clients, Millie and Adam. They run two different stores across the street from each other, and Millie's bookshop. And there's all kinds of these lovely signs like, we will kindly wrap your gifts and ship them nationwide. Like clear, concise, helpful. Also a really good marketing tip, because now people know they have, that they'll ship, and just like lovely, like we'll kindly do this for you. In Adam's shop over at he's a bike shop, Blackwell's and Sons, there's a second story with a rope across, which a lot of you have, right? You have a rope across, your second story or a closed section of your shop. And literally this sign is a monster, like at the top of the stairs. Like it's almost like a monster's going to get you if you go up here. So don't go up. It's funny. The whole shop is full of dozens of funny signs, cheeky signs. The one in the dressing room was really fun. I will share a few of them in the show notes. So as my team is editing this, they're going to listen. I'm going to make sure we put some of our images in there for you. I'll put some of Adam's images in there. They're really just fun, and it evokes the feeling of the shop as well too, right? So I'm walking around the shop, I'm reading signs, they make me smile. I feel good, right? Same shop has great music. It's clean, it's tidy, it's got good music. I feel good. The shop standards are really high. So I'm feeling good. I'm shopping. The signs make me, smile. They don't make me feel like a criminal. And I'm much more open to buy, right? I am going to buy when signage is clear, obvious, and kind and on brand and fun. So just think about your signage. Walk around your shop today. Look at your signage. Ask yourself, am I just being like functional, or am I being helpful and evoking feelings? Okay, number 4 is inventory. My friends, listen to this. Like, listen to my words when I pay attention to your inventory. And by that, I mean the levels of your inventory. Empty shelves. And we all have times where it's really busy, or we have a lull, or we have areas of our product lines that we're low on. I mean, that's retail, right? That's retail. But I was in a few shops where they had things spread so thin out that, I was assuming they were going out of business. I made that assumption a couple of times. Had some conversations with some owners of shops, or, and just, I was kind of curious, and like, no, not going out of business. They're just really bare minimum. And listen to me in my heart when I say this. I understand if your cash flow is, hard on you, if you're having a hard time with cash flow, but it does not evoke a confidence to your buyer, to the customers. They're not going to buy. They won't buy if it looks empty. If you only have one of something, they're not buying it. This is psychology 101 in retail psychology. They won't buy. So we have to merchandise our shop better. Sometimes it means maybe shrinking areas or spreading things out, but there's a way to merchandise and to learn how to merchandise to sell. The opposite is true. I was in shops that had too much inventory, like stacked on top of each other, and so messy, and it was so hard to shop, and this is a common thing. This isn't just from my trip, obviously, but I was on my trip to New Zealand, and then we came home and we did another trip. And so I've been in a lot of shops, and that's, of course, my job. But one shop in particular that I was in, it was just so full of inventory, and it was just too much. So I want you to pay attention to and understand how to merchandise to sell, merchandise so that it feels good. Again, it has to evoke a feeling to your customer. So you don't want it to look like a fire sale, and you don't want to have too much. A third note on this is I was in a couple of shops, and their inventory didn't make any sense to their brand. They were trying something new. You could just tell. There was one who was trying to bring, like, it was like there were, anyway, it just did not make sense. Make sure your inventory is cohesive to your brand and that everything, I mean, this is Retail 101. You can have arms of your brand, you can have different, areas of, in your shop, of course, but make sure you're not selling snow tires if you are a dress shop. That's the extreme, I know, but that's what we want to look at. I want to remind you that we have, again, resources inside the Inner Circle. I know I keep talking about this, but they are there. And I know our Inner Circle members all listen to the podcast as well, or maybe they don't all do, but many do. They listen to the podcast. So if you're listening, we do have resources, or if you're in need, if you're ready and you're like, yes, Wendy, I need to start thinking about being more proactive in different parts. Like, it's new level, new devil, right? As our business expands and grows, as we up level, as we just put one more layer of better. I always say we just want to be one more layer of better. Maybe you too want some of these resources, and they're all accessible as a member of the Inner Circle. They're not dripped out. They're like, you join, you get them. Like, it's all there. So, and again, it's not to fire hose you with information. That's never our intention. It's like, hey, what do I want to learn this month? And if your shelves are empty and you're wondering about proper merchandising techniques, or if you have too much inventory and you're like, yeah, Wendy, I can hear you calling me out, or I don't know how to keep that balance. We have also inventory buying masterclasses, like how to keep your inventory and cash flow going with an open to buy program. We have that as well for you. So when you're ready for those, if you're not a member already, you can go and grab those things. If you are a member, I want you to think about, like, what do you need this month? What would be helpful to you? And go grab what you need. If inventory, so we have merchandising ones and inventory classes. And again, you just go grab them, do on your own time and get it done. Action is powerful, right? Taking action on things we know we need to do. It's empowering. Okay. Last one, number 5, is making assumptions. So I'm going to say this one really quickly, but everyone, like a lot of shops, and this was a recurring theme, is that people already knew what we did and who we were. Don't make that assumption. I was new. I didn't know anything about that, or I didn't know about those products. So be helpful and never make the assumption that customers don't want help. I see this all the time. Customers need to be spoken to properly. So again, I want to encourage you to teach your staff to sell and how to speak to people. How we speak to people is all the difference. And again, lots of resources around that, and how we, so don't make assumptions that people don't want help, and don't make assumptions that we know what it is you do here in your shop, or how your doodads work, or what if I walk into a yarn store, don't make an assumption that I know everything about yarn. I know nothing about yarn. I am a newbie. So go back to your beginner's mindset and how to speak to customers in a retail environment. Do some digging, have some conversations, ask me. Don't be salesy, don't be pushy, people. There's just ways to speak to people. We all know about that. So stop making assumptions that people don't want help. This is a recurring thing I noticed a lot in New Zealand. If I'm being honest, I'm calling you out, New Zealand, right now, that people just made an assumption I didn't want help. So, and I was like, I'm over here, could use some help, and I want to buy some things. Stores where people talked to me and explained things to me, told me about their brands, explained to me about their artists in their shop or whatever. Guess where I spent my money? Customers or store owners who were speaking to clients and sourcing out what they need. And again, that's what we call serving to sell, right? You're serving me, serve me, be hospitable, and I will buy. So that was a common thread that we saw. So stop making assumptions. That is my number 5. And I just want to remind you, if there's an area here, again, about marketing, making sure that your first impressions are good. Number 2 was making sure your shop standards, that you don't have a messy shop that needs some touch up and some work done and it feels unloved. And number 3 was signage, making sure that you're evoking the right feelings around your signage and you're very clear on especially the exterior signs and the interior signs on what you're trying to say. Cute never wins. Clear is always kind, just so you know. Inventory, making sure that you're not too much, not too little, like making sure that you have that wonderful balance so a shop feels shoppable, as we like to say, right? Shop needs to feel shoppable. And number 5, stop making assumptions about your customers. Don't make assumptions about that they don't want to be served. Don't make assumptions that they only have so much money to spend. Don't make assumptions about the lady that walks in all sweaty with her shorts and t-shirt on because she just went climbing through a mountain and then she got off and she's like made her husband stop. And now she's in this lovely boutique. Don't make an assumption that I don't want to buy something nice in your pretty shop just because I look like somebody off the hiking trail. Not that that happened, but it did. So let's stop making assumptions about anything around our clients. So that's your 5 takeaways from my trip to New Zealand and my trip I did some road trips around my area as well recently. I've been on the road quite a bit, heading on the road again, heading down to the US to host my mastermind members. I'll be hosting my Level Up Mastermind members in Thomasville, Georgia, which is the home of Amy and Chris Hart, who run The Hair and the Heart. Amy has been on the podcast before, so I would encourage you maybe to go have a listen to her podcast. She's one of our mastermind members, and we work really hard to make sure that our mastermind meetings are taking place in our members' communities, and I love it. I get to see their shops and meet all their collaborations and all the other shops, so it's wonderful. So shout out to Amy, and we're really excited to be attending our mastermind being held in Thomasville, Georgia. So just wanted to give a little shout out to Amy and Chris. Go visit their website at thehairandtheheart.com. It's beautiful. And I just want to share that. So thank you for listening today. I hope you found one action, something in today's trip takeaways that you found helpful. And I'd love for you to, let's continue the conversation. If you're a member of the Inner Circle, let's continue the conversation in our group chats. If you're not a member of the Inner Circle, again, why not? You can do so very easily when you're ready, wendybatten.com//join. I have other programs as well too. We have some standalone programs if you're not ready to become a member of the Inner Circle. And we have lots of other programs, but you can also jump into my Instagram DMs. I love having conversations inside the DMs. And as always, I appreciate you listening, and I would appreciate if you can leave us a review if you have not already. And if you don't know how to leave an Apple review and you're curious about it, we do have the information on how to do that on our podcast or wherever else you're listening to this podcast. Or you can just send me an email. Let me know. What were your takeaways today? I love hearing from you. I love knowing, and I know, shout out to Cheryl from Albert and Middle, who told me recently, she said, I listen to all the podcasts. I find them so helpful, Wendy. And she said, but I never tell you that, and I never leave reviews and, all of those things. So thank you, Cheryl, for listening and telling me that, because it does keep the podcast going. But reviews do help the algorithms, so I do appreciate those as well. You can leave a star review. We always love a 5-star review, but of course, I'm never going to tell anybody to leave a 5-star review. But thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Next week, we will be back with some helpful tips on spring cleaning your business, and it's not what you think. So we'll talk to you then. See you then, my friends. Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Creative Shop Talk podcast. I'm so glad that you were here to join us this week, and I hope you found value in what we're sharing here. I want to remind you that our website has all of the show notes. You can find it at wendybatten.com/podcast. Everything that you need to hear about today's podcast is there. Also an opportunity if you need to reach out to me. If I can support you in any way whatsoever, please feel free to reach out. So thanks for joining us. Please leave a review, subscribe if you can, and never miss an episode. We hope to see you back here again next week. Thanks, my friend. Have a great week.